already, for the 3 weeks and we're all here together. Absolutely incredible. I say it every Thursday, I know. And my Thursday feeling that this morning is amazing. Like very special women in this room, and I'm so excited to share this morning with you. I just want to let you know, next week is our last one. So I'll see you all again next week with Joanne. She's coming up from London. So book it in your diaries today. The next Thursday morning you're here, you're not anywhere else. I just want to say, I know you all want to get on with listening to this morning's shiur, but I'm just going to say a few refuah shleimus because the list unfortunately is getting bigger, and we should just daven that these people should have refuah shleima. Anyone I don't know, they should also have refuah shleima. So Henny Yehuda's Bas Masha, Yitzhak Isaac ben Yehuda's Rochel, Yitzhak ben Adasa Eliana, Shalamet Nachama Bas Zisti Rochel, Zvi Yosef ben Per Rochel, Yaakov Nachum ben Per Rochel. And we are honored. I can't tell you, I am on a high. Whoever missed it, I'm sorry. You're just going to have to tell me and I'll send it to you on WhatsApp on Tuesday night. But I am on a high from Tuesday night. The women are on a high. Manchester is on a high from Reverton here because she really, really spoke beautifully and uplifting. And this morning I'm excited from New York, Rabanit Cohen. She's with us today. So enjoy her. Really enjoy.
Thank you so much. Good morning, ladies. Bruchot habaot. Bruchot hanimtzaot. Marianne. Thank you, Marianne. Where'd you disappear to? She made her speech and she took off. Marianne, you're cute. You're cute. I love it. You're so cute. Thank you so much for hosting this amazing event here in Manchester, Project Seed. And it is incredible to see so many women on a Thursday morning. Now, I don't know what the custom is here in Manchester, but in New York on a Thursday morning, the ladies are all in their kitchens slaving away for the Shabbat. So the fact that you came out here on this Thursday morning to join us, to hear Divrei Torah is incredible. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should open up the heavens for you. And I hear Manchester is known for rain. Hashem should pour down upon you kshamim, rains of blessing, of prosperity, of nachat, and be'ezrat Hashem, the Geulah. Ladies, we just began the period known as Ben HaMetzarim. These are the days between Shiva Asar B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, which total 21 days, not including Tisha B'Av. When Yirmiyah HaNavi, alav Shalom, prophesied about the destruction of the first Bet Mikdash, HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked him, Ma ata ro'eh? What do you see in your prophecy? And Yirmiyah answered, Makel shaked ani ro'eh. I see a stick with almonds on it, and I see a kid who's lost. Here, I don't know whose kid that is. She's just wandering, going around in circles. Somebody please direct her. Is there a red light somewhere? Whose kid is that? She's good? Okay. Makel shaked ani ro'eh. I see a stick with almonds on it. What was the significance of this almond branch? Rashi HaKadosh, alav Shalom, comments that from the time the almond tree begins to bud until it reaches its full bloom, it's a total of 21 days. So just like it takes the almond 21 days to develop, that's how quickly the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash was going to take place. It took 21 days from the time the Romans surrounded Yerushalayim until they burnt the temple down to the ground. So the question is like this. If Tisha B'Av was the day when the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed, why don't we include that day in our counting? It should be 22 days, including Tisha B'Av, because if there's a day that we want to include, it's the day that the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed. Does that make sense? Yeah. What's your name? Fegi. Where are you from? Israel. I too from Israel. I born in Israel. The reason we don't include Tisha B'Av is because in the future, the day is going to be a joyous day. It is going to be a day of celebration. Why? Because Mashiach was born on Tisha B'Av. For this reason, Tisha B'Av is rendered a mini holiday. It's a moed. That's how elevated the day is. Not only that, but even though the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed on Tisha B'Av, it was still better than the alternative. The alternative was that, God forbid, Chaz v'Shalom, HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have destroyed the Jewish people. So instead of God taking out his anger on the people, he destroyed the building instead. A building is something you could replace, but you cannot replace the Jewish people. So even though Tisha B'Av is a day of destruction, but at least the Jewish people were spared. And I'll give you an example of what I mean with a story. There was a king who made a wedding for his son, the prince, and the wedding took place on his beautiful estate. The king hired the best caterer and the top musicians. He ordered the finest tapestries and the most elegant furnishings. Everything was perfect for the day of his son's wedding. But just a few hours before the celebration, news reached the king that his son committed a terrible crime that shamed the entire royal family. And the king was livid. He was furious. How could the prince commit such a crime and on the day of his wedding yet? In a fit of rage, the king took the chairs and he began to throw them against the tapestries and the furnishings. He went to the tables with all the food and he flipped it over. And he wasn't even Moroccan. He broke. Are you Maroccite? Are you? Yes. You? Well, I know, because you laugh the most. You understand what I'm talking about. I'm also Moroccan, by the way. But I'm a calm Moroccan. He broke all the dishes and all the crystal glasses. He smashed the bottles of wine. He ran to the orchestra and he broke their instruments. And he kept screaming, "What kind of heir do I have? What kind of rebellious son is this?" When the king was through with his tirade, one musician who survived the entire ordeal approached the king, took out his violin, and he started to play the happiest melody. The king couldn't believe it. He said, "You fool! Don't you see what I just did? I destroyed the entire wedding, and you take out your violin and you start playing me a happy tune? Is this the appropriate response?" And the violin player said, "Your Majesty, do you know why I started to play the violin? Because luck had it that your son was not here. If your son was here, what you did to the tables and the chairs, you would have done to him. So I'm happy that you took out your anger on the material items instead of your son. You're a very wealthy man. Tomorrow, your anger is going to subside and you could easily replace all the items that you destroyed. But if your son would have been here, you could have accidentally killed him in your moment of fury. And there's no way you could replace your child. That's why I'm happy." God took out his anger on sticks and stones. So as sad a day as Tisha B'Av is, there's a silver lining in that God spared us and he destroyed the material items instead. That's why there are 21 days of Ben HaMetzarim and not 22 days including Tisha B'Av, because there's an optimistic way in which we view Tisha B'Av. So ladies, that was my introduction. Today, you are going to learn the secret of these 21 days. Now, I heard that this group is very elevated and you guys can handle the secrets of Torah. Is that true? Yeah. You're not going to say no, right? But I believe that you are. So today you are going to learn the very esoteric side of these 21 days. The Zohar HaKadosh teaches that when the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed, besides the fact that the Jewish people were sent into exile, the Shekhinah HaKadoshah, God's divine presence, also went into exile together with us. You see, Hashem's divine presence was situated in the Bet HaMikdash. But when it was destroyed, it was as if the Shekhinah was evicted, and now it didn't have a resting place. The Shekhinah is suffering because it doesn't want to be in exile. It wants to be in Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh, a built Yerushalayim. But Hashem, and thank God that God at least left the divine presence a little bit around us, because if the divine presence would have left us completely, we would have been in big trouble. So God left His divine presence so that we'd still have a way to connect to Him. So I want to reveal a big chidush to you that will require you to use your imagination. We all know that one of Hashem's names is Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. Chachamim explain that each of these four letters of Hashem's name, it represents something else. And they tell us that the last Hey, the Hey HaHachona, that represents the Shekhinah HaKadoshah, the divine presence, that last Hey. Our rabbis tell us that if Adam Harishon would not have eaten from the Etz Hadat, we would all still be in Gan Eden or in Yerushalayim now, living a very peaceful existence. But the sin of Adam was so great that it's still haunting us 5,778 years later. And of course some of us think, why did Adam have to go now and eat from the tree? If I was there, I wouldn't have eaten from the tree, right? Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but you were there. We were all there. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai Alav Hashalom reveals to us that embedded in the body of Adam and Chava were all the souls of all the people that were destined to be born to this world from the beginning of time and until the end of time. Adam was a composite of all those future souls that would one day come out of him and his wife. So we can't only blame Adam for the sin because we were there and we didn't stop him from sinning. How come we didn't protest or at the very least protect him from the sin? We were all part of the sin. That's the reason we're all still affected by that sin. All of us, including the neshamot of the greatest tzaddikim, failed on that day long ago. We were all drawn after that sin. Before the sin, the Shekhinah was very close to Adam. But after the sin, it was as if the sin chased away the divine presence and it went back up to the heavens. I want to explain it to you the way the Rabbanim explain it to us. When Adam HaRishon sinned, it's as if he severed the letter Hey from God's name and disconnected it from the other three letters. So we had Yud, Hey, Vav, disconnected from that last letter. And that meant that God's name was now not complete. That's why after Adam sinned, God asked him the following question. He asked him, Ayeka, where are you? What do you mean, where are you? Hashem doesn't know where Adam is. Why ask Adam, where are you? And the Chachamim explain that the word Ayeka is actually stands for two words. It stands for the words Ech, Hey. Adam, what did you do to the hay? How could you have committed such an avera against me? Because as a result of your sin, you severed my holy name and you chased the divine presence away back to the heavens. That was the rebuke that was given to Adam HaRishon by God. Ech hey, how did you disconnect my name and sever it? Now, I want you to imagine the following. Imagine that before the sin of the Etz Hadat, there was a thread that ran through each of these letters in Hashem's name. That means that the letters were kind of being held together and were connected by a thread. Could you imagine a thread? Kind of like, you know, when you go to the store and you buy like happy birthday and it's all connected? Imagine that. Yud, hey, vav, hey. But when Adam sinned, the thread was cut and all the letters fell apart. You could imagine that? Yes? No? Maybe so? Hello, Minnie Mouse. That's what it says on your t-shirt. What's your name?
Adi.
Adi? Beautiful. Adi, hi. Your mommy's giving you candy? That's your breakfast? She doesn't know what I want from her. She's like, leave me alone, I'm enjoying my breakfast. Later on in history, when Avraham Avinu showed up on the scene, he began to correct the sin of Adam HaRishon. That's one of the reasons why God added the letter Hey to Avraham's name. Avraham, if you look at the scriptures, was originally named Avram, but he became Avraham because he was able to correct the first Hey of Hashem's name, the first Hey. Now moving on, Yitzchak Avinu was really supposed to have been named Tzchok because Sarah, if you remember, laughed when she heard the news that she was going to have a child in her old age. But instead he was named Yitzchak. So the letter Yud was added to his name because Chachamim tell us that he was able to correct the letter Yud of Hashem's name. So we now had a Yud and a Hey. Yaakov Avinu was able to correct the letter Vav of Hashem's name, which is why on him we say, when we have the tefillah of Shmona Esrei, you know, when we take the steps back, we say, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Ve Elokei Yaakov. So the Vav, we don't say Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei, we say Ve Elokei Yaakov. That Vav represents the Vav that Yaakov Avinu corrected. So the three forefathers were able to correct and reconnect the first three letters of Hashem's name. What's the question? What? What was going on? Very good, you're paying attention. What about that final Hey? Chachamim tell us that when Moshe Rabbeinu came along, he was able to correct that last Hey of Hashem's remaining letters. When? At Har Sinai, at Ma'amad Har Sinai. God's name was complete and the world reached the ultimate level of perfection. Am Yisrael were on the level of Adam HaRishon before the sin. You see how many years it took to realign God's letters? Let me tell you, you're not going to believe this. From Adam HaRishon to Avraham Avinu was 20 generations. That's a long time. From Avraham Avinu to Moshe Rabbeinu was 6 generations. So it took exactly 26 generations in order to bring God's name to completion. And 26, we know, is the numerical value of Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Isn't that incredible? It sounds so beautiful, no? Doesn't it? Yeah. I think only you guys think it does. You guys are still pondering, isn't that beautiful? Everything was so perfect on that day at Har Sinai. But unfortunately, ladies, whenever we get close to perfection, the Satan tries to sabotage our efforts. So shortly after Ma'amad Har Sinai, we worshiped the golden calf. And what happened as a result? The same thing that happened in Gan Eden. God's name was once again severed, and the Shekhinah had to go back up to the Shamayim. It was a whole big mess. Interestingly, by the way, the sin of the golden calf took place on Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, on the first day of the 3 weeks. So the 17th of Tammuz is, so to speak, earmarked for disaster. But anyhow, after Klal Yisrael worshipped the Egel, we had to pick up all the broken pieces all over again. What a shame this was, ladies. You could imagine. Hi, how are you?
Sorry.
What's your name? It's okay. What's your name?
Angie Schreier.
Angie?
Schreier.
Schreier. It's nice to meet you. Where do you live?
Broughton Park. Here, Manchester.
We'll call it Manchester. I can't pronounce all these British names. You could imagine, we're talking about Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, that they helped to realign God's letters after 26 generations, and then we came along and we busted it all up at Ma'amad Har Sinai when we worshipped the golden calf. So we're saying you could imagine how sad Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov were as they looked down from the heavens. They worked so hard for 26 generations to put the letters back in place. And when the picture was finally perfect, the Jewish people came along and boom, they broke it apart. We had to start all over again. You can imagine, you know how you build a house of cards and somebody comes, it's not that they accidentally bump into you, they go, zoop. Don't you get upset? Wouldn't you get upset? Years later, when the first Bet HaMikdash was built by Shlomo HaMelech alav Shalom, we were given the opportunity to bring the world to some level of perfection, where the Shekhinah came down to the Bet HaMikdash and everything was so beautiful and holy. What happened? What always seems to happen to us. We began to commit very grave sins. They were the 3 cardinal sins. Shefichut damim, murder. Gilui arayot, immorality, and avodah zarah, idolatry. On these sins it is said, Bal yahareg ve'al ya'avor. If you commit the sin, or you are about to commit the sin, rather die than commit the sin. And as a result of that, God destroyed the first Bet Mikdash. So after 70 years of exile, we recovered from the first blow, and we were able to construct the second Bet HaMikdash, which stood for 420 years until God destroyed that one as well. Why did Hashem destroy the second Bet HaMikdash? It was because of the sin of baseless hatred, where people didn't get along with one another. And the rabbis ask, what's worse? What's worse? The 3 cardinal sins of idolatry, immorality, and murder? Or sinat chinam, baseless hatred? And the Talmud, the Gemara answers, well, look at it this way. After the first Bet Mikdash was destroyed due to those 3 major sins, it was rebuilt just 70 years later. But because of sinat chinam, we're still waiting for almost 2,000 years for the third Bet Mikdash to be rebuilt. What does that tell you? It means that baseless hatred is equivalent, it's on the same scale as the 3 cardinal sins. And I'll explain it to you. Explain how that is. You see, the rabbis, and ladies, this is a lesson of life. The rabbis teach us that there are 3 negative traits that remove a person from this world. Kina, jealousy. It's not good to be a jealous person. Ta'ava, lust, where somebody runs after his baser desires and he's always craving some kind of yetzer out there. And then there is kavod, seeking honor and being self-absorbed with your ego. Our rabbis tell us that these 3 traits are the source of those 3 major sins. How so? Well, let's take jealousy, for example. A jealous person can no longer tolerate his friend, and he can come to the point where he can kill his friend. There are people who have been known in a jealous rage to kill the person that they're angry with. So jealousy can lead to murder. Shvichut damim. Next is ta'ava, lust. When a person lusts after lowly desires, it can cause him to do acts of gilui arayot, of immorality. And finally there's kavod, honor. The Gemara tells us that a person with an inflated ego is considered like an idol worshiper. Why? Because although there's only one God in the world, you come along and you turn yourself into a deity where you want the entire world to see you, to hear you, to honor you. You think you're the only one in the world? But who are you? You're nothing. You're a mere servant of the King of Kings. So kavod, running after honor, could lead to avodah zarah.
Can I just say, I don't mean to correct you or anything, but it's just causing a bit of conflict in my head. You're saying that the destruction of the temple, Adam's sin, and blah blah blah, all the ways we've epic failed in physicality, the Shekhinah has gone back, yeah? Well, I've always understood that it was never the Shekhinah that went back, or that Hashem was angry with us or whatever. It was us that made the cut, not Hashem. By being absorbed into the physicality.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say, that as a result of the sin, it caused, the repercussion was that...
Anywhere, really.
You have to understand that it's very hard to explain esoteric concepts. There is the concept of God. Now, if Hashem himself would come down to this world, it would be very difficult for people to be able to connect to this being. People. And then there's manifestations of God. Manifestation of Hashem, like the Shekhinah, which is a female manifestation of Hashem, which is what we call a compacted version. It's very Kabbalistic things that we're talking about now. It's really not for this class, but basically what Hashem does in the language of the Kabbalah is that He's metzamtzem. He creates a situation where He can compact His divine presence, which is a female manifestation, and He can allow that to be here in this world with us so that we can connect to Him. But Hashem Himself is so infinite and so grand that if He would come down, which He tried to do on that day at Har Sinai, the Gemara says people were dying right and left. They couldn't handle it. It's like going too close to the sun. You get burnt. So Hashem and again, this is all Kabbalistic stuff, and I'm trying to bring it down to our level, but Hashem creates manifestations of His being, compacted. So the divine presence He allows to be here. So when we say we chased it back up, you also have to remember that there are levels of the heavens too. According to Kabbalah, there are 7 levels. Hashem is where do you think He is? The top. But you have to understand, top is like, I can't even describe to you the length of time in our world, because again, the universe has no limitation. It's infinite, right? So the Shekhinah, when we say it went back up, it went up to a certain part of the realm of Shamayim. But we don't want it all the way up there. We want it with us.
So what stays with us then?
The connection that you have to the Shekhinah, and certain things that you do that can draw it down, which is what I'm about to continue to say.
So what's the neshama then?
The neshama, again, is also in parts. The neshama is just one chelek, one part of 5 parts that exist in your neshama. You have a nefesh, you have the chai part of your neshama, right? If you learn...
Can you just ask, did Adam have it all as one?
Well, when Adam was created, it was created as the ultimate perfect man, but with choice, with bechira chofshit. So if the first perfect man was created and he erred, once you make that mistake, you go down in your level of perfection. So we're constantly trying to rise up to levels of perfection, but at this point in time, we're so already removed from that level. It takes us a long time to get there.
I just don't like the thought of Hashem being angry with us because we are trying our best, you know, and I think He's very merciful.
Yes, He is very merciful, but listen, again, we're talking Kabbalistic inyanim, and anger is one way that God deals with the world. He deals with the world with mercy too. The Chachamim tell us that God is extremely patient. Extremely patient. It takes a long time for Him to actually implement His state of anger. But if He would not react to the world, you would do whatever you want. There has to be a cause and effect in the world. Just like a parent and a child. The parent loves the child, but he also has to discipline the child. Now, if the parent is constantly merciful, you see this when they teach you chinuch, education of a child. They tell you, why are you being so lax? Why are you not disciplining him now? Oh, I'm a merciful mother. But your mercy is killing the child. So there has to be some level. It's that the Torah teaches us, Yad Yamin mekarevet. The right hand, so to speak, embraces and loves and shows compassion. But there has to be the left hand too. The left hand is din, strict justice. Sometimes you have to do this. Teach the child, discipline the child, punish the child, put the child in timeout, not give him the candy that he wants. Nachon? Sometimes you gotta... Wow, that's a different story. That's a different story. But I'm saying, as a parent, we know that it's the same thing with Hashem. Hashem tries His best. Meaning, just like you, child is pushing you, pushing you, pushing you. You're merciful, you're compassionate, you give him a chance, you give him a warning, and then afterwards that's it, I can't anymore.
It's called tough love.
I'll tell her. But anyway, if I continue, it'll answer a lot of you. If I continue. What's your name? I love your questions. You and I should study together. Amanda, you're amazing. You have a brilliant mind. You think amazing.
No, I'm picking up on all their questions.
No, it's good.
The voice, not the
No, you're good. You're good. If you want, I'm willing to call you from the States and study with you one-on-one.
You don't know me.
You don't know me. You don't know me. I'm Moroccan. Don't start with a Moroccan, Amanda. You don't start off with a Moroccan. You met your match, Amanda. You met your match.
Baruch Hashem.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, can I?
What?
Can I as well?
B'ezrat Hashem. Anyway, going back, since we lost track a little bit, that's exactly what happened during the times of the first Bet Mikdash. Bnei Yisrael possessed these three negative traits: jealousy, running after honor, ta'ava, they were lustful, and that led them to the three major sins of murder, of immorality, and idol worshipping. Now, during the times of the second Bet HaMikdash, Bnei Yisrael engaged in baseless hatred. But guess what? Chachamim tell us baseless hatred is also based on these three negative traits. These are lessons of life. How? Because if I'm, for example, jealous of you, take jealousy, I'm not going to want to get along with you. I'm going to want to bankrupt you deep down. And I might even come to the point of destroying you. And that leads to a very, very deep hatred. Jealousy often leads to hatred. Ta'ava, lust. Because we couldn't control our base desires, and I'm constantly lusting for what my neighbor has, or what I would love to have, the lust for certain things, like the lust for money, the lust for material items, caused us to treat our neighbors badly. And finally, we have honor, kavod. The love of self and the honor that we felt is due us by our neighbors also led to baseless hatred. You with me?
Yeah.
Good. Now the Rabbanim and the Gemara inform us that every night Hashem cries in the Shamayim for the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash. It says, Shalosh mishmarot hevei halayla. There are 3 periods in the evening Ve'al kol mishmar u'mishmar. And during each of these stages of the night, HaKadosh Baruch Hu yoshev ve'sho'eg ke'ari. God cries out and he roars like a lion. What does Hashem cry out? Amanda, listen to these words. Oy labanim shebe'avonotehem hechravti beiti. Woe to the children who because of their sins I was forced to destroy my house. V'sarafti hechali, and I had to burn my sanctuary. Vehiglatim la'umot, and unfortunately, ultimately they had to be exiled among the nations of the world. And the Gaon of Vilna, alav shalom, informs us as to the nature of these three roars. And he explains that the first cry is because of the fact that God had to destroy his Bet Mikdash. Shechrafti et beiti. Ladies, the Gaon of Vilna tells us, just like there was a Bet Mikdash here on earth, there was a spiritual Bet Mikdash in the heavens. These two temples, they mirror each other. So when God cries out about the fact that he destroyed Et Beiti, it's referring to the heavenly Bet Mikdash. There's a cause and effect that Shamayim and Aretz are connected. Something happens down here and it affects up there. Something happens up there and it affects us down here. That makes sense? There's this mirror world, mirror universe. So the second period of crying is concerning the word sarafti hechali. That's the burning of the Bet HaMikdash down below, here on earth. And the third crying is concerning Am Yisrael that had to be exiled and dispersed throughout the nations of the world. But listen to the amazing explanation as to why God roars 3 times. You see, ladies, we are fighting the Yetzer Hara, who causes us to run after our ta'avot, who causes us to seek out our honor, and who creates that jealousy in our hearts. As long as the Yetzer Hara is victorious, and we don't overcome these negative traits, the Bet HaMikdash cannot be rebuilt. So what does the Gemara tells us? What does it tell us? A person cannot go into the boxing ring with the Yetzer Hara all on his own. You cannot fight this evil inclination all by yourself. The Yetzer, he's made of iron. He's a monster. How are you going to defeat him exactly? The Gemara says, if you want to be able to have a chance of defeating the Yetzer Hara, you have to be mitgaber ke'ari. You have to be strong like a lion. Amanda, I'm not a lion. I'm a human being. How could I overcome this powerful monster when I am a basar vadam? I am flesh and blood. I'm not a lion. So the rabbi tells us, you're not a lion, but God is called like a lion. And he helps his children overcome their baser inclination. And that's what it means when we're told that God roars like a lion 3 times. He roars for us. The first time he cries is because he wants his children to be able to overcome their jealousy. The second period of the night where he cries, he's hoping that we're going to overcome the inclination of running always after our honor. And the third time he roars, it's because he's praying that we should be able to overcome our ta'avot. Therefore, we have Hashem in the heavens roaring like a lion on our behalf. And that crying in the heavens is like a rumble of inspiration that assists us to defeat the evil inclination down here. And once we correct these traits, the Bet HaMikdash can be rebuilt. You with me? You get what's going on? But now watch this. The Gemara says concerning these 3 roars, Shalosh Mishmarot Hevei Halayla. There are 3 stages in the night where God roars. Notice the word Hevei. It spells out the first 3 letters of Hashem's name, right? Yud, Hey, Vav. What does that mean? Says the Gaon of Vilna, as long as the Bet HaMikdash is not rebuilt, God's name is not complete. We're missing that final what? That final Hey, and that's one of the reasons why God cries, Shalosh Mishmarot Hevei, because currently there are only 3 letters that comprise his name. And then we have the word Halayla. Halayla. Halayla stands for Hey Laila. Hey Laila. In other words, in the darkness of this exile, the final letter Hey is in darkness. Hey Laila. The letter Hey is in a state of galut. And that's one of the reasons why Hashem cries Dafka specifically at night.
Didn't he create the Olam with a Hey? Is that not the Hey that he wants to attach? The first?
The Hey, the Chachamim say Olam Haba was created with the Yud of Hashem's name, and this world was created with the Hey. That's why we say Ki Beya Hashem Tzur Olamim. That with the Yud and the Hey, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tzur, from the word Yatzar, he created Olamim, worlds. Yud, the upper spheres. Hey, our world.
Can I just speak? I know I don't shut up last day. I once heard when I was doing the share that everyone says like, well, what was before creation? What was before creation, right? And this blew my mind, and I want to know if it's fact, because I've actually meditated on this. And the answer to what was before creation is not everything, it's not nothing, it's the road back. So the Hey, the Olam was always meant to be severed because we were always meant to find the road back.
That's an interesting concept. But I'll tell you something else, Amanda. The Torah begins with what word? Bereshit. What letter is the first letter of Bereshit? That means the first letter in the Torah is what? Bet. How come it's not Aleph?
Because Aleph's the road back.
No, that's not why. You have a pen?
Not tell me.
I'm telling you right now. It's interesting because really, if there's one letter you want to start the Torah with, it's Aleph. First of all, Aleph stands for Alufo Shel Olam, which means the master of this universe. There's only one. Aleph is one. There's only one God.
Doesn't mean it's not.
Okay?
The bet is not.
So why Bet? So first of all, Bet is the number 2. And 2 represents duality. This world is in a dual mode, which means there is a physical side of this world and there is a spiritual side to this world. The physical cannot survive without the spiritual. If God would remove the spiritual element of anything in this world, which we would call, in layman's terms, energy, then that item would disintegrate. That is why when God removes the neshama from the body, which is the spiritual element of the human being, and we put the body in the ground, what happens to it? It starts to decompose. The letter Bet, that's the letter Bet? Yeah. Yafe. The opening, we read from right to left, right? Everyone else reads from left to right. So the Bet, the opening is to which direction? This way, right? Right? Is there an opening this way? No. Sealed. Sealed? You know why Hashem started with Bereshit, with Bet? It's a Kabbalistic concept. Hashem says, I am now creating this world for you to live in. You're going to have questions like, well, what happened before Bereshit? Like there's gonna Amanda come one day, Manchester, years later, 5,778 years later, and ask Kinneret Cohen, what happened before Bereshit? Hashem says, what happened before is sealed before you, because you cannot, it's not possible for man with his limited capacity to understand limitless concepts. So he says, I want you to concentrate from this point onward. Move on. Is it going to really help to enhance your life if you knew what happened before Bereshit and blah, 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 blah? No. Hashem says, focus, move on. And you know what? That is a tremendous psychological lesson of life. People get stuck. What happened before? And look what happened to me last year and 10 years ago. And it's never ending. And people get stuck, what we call in the past. God says, don't get stuck on what happened before. Move on. What's important now is from this point on and how it relates to you as a human being in this world. Okay, can I move on? Move on. I can move on. That means, that's one of the reasons why Hashem cries. Hashem says, it's all up to you. I'm going to roar and cry like a lion 3 times a night so that you should have the strength to defeat the Yetzer Hara and overcome those traits. But in the end, it's up to you to do the work. And what happens, ladies? On the day of Tisha B'Av, we read, open up Megillat Eicha. What's the first word in the Megillah? Eicha. Amanda, do these letters look familiar to you? Don't those letters? It's like Ayeka. Ech. Hey. What did you do to the letter Hey again? Just like God told Adam Arishon Ayeka. He repeats it again years later on Tisha B'Av with the word Echa. What did you do to the Hey? What does the Megillah say? Echa Yashva Badad. Why is the letter Hey sitting all alone? Why are you not busy trying to reconnect the letters to their rightful place? Now you might be thinking, and some of the students tell me this in America, listen, this is a little too lofty for me. You're telling me to take the letter Hey and realign it with the other letters of God's name. It seems like a very Kabbalistic concept. I'm not on the level of the righteous people or the Mekubalim, the Kabbalistics out there who involve themselves in otherworldly matters or deep meditation. I'm a simple person who gets up in the morning and I can't even leave my house without a cup of coffee. That's number one. I like to exercise. I like to eat my lunch with my friends. I like to shop on the avenue. I'm a little too materialistic to start playing with all these letters now. Take the Hey, put it back to the Yud, the Hey, the Vav. I don't know what you want from me. Please, you're talking to the wrong person. Talking to the wrong crowd. Ladies, I'm not talking to the wrong crowd. Our Rabbanim teach us that every single Jew, from the biggest tzaddik to the simplest person, has a responsibility to lift the Shekhinah up and out of this galut. And I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to prove it to you. The pasuk in Parashat Terumah says, Daber el bnei Israel, Moshe, speak to the Jewish people and tell them, Vaikhu li terumah, have the people take for me a donation, me'et kol ish, from every person. Nobody's exempt from this donation. Everyone has to offer a donation, whether you're poor or rich. Chachamim explained that on a deeper level. You know what the word terumah stands for? Amanda, you got this. You know what this is now. I stumped you? That's good. No, I'm just kidding. Tarum Hey. Tarum Hey, which means raise up the Hey. Hashem is asking from every single Jew, Me'et kol ish, lift up the letter Hey for me. You cannot exempt yourself from this obligation because your neshama was present within Adam Rishon, and that neshama that helped to chase the Shekhinah away also has the same ability to restore the Shekhinah to her rightful place. And guess what, Amanda? I'm going to tell you how to do it. I'm not going to let you leave here without giving you the formula. I'm just setting up the picture for you so that you understand the concept. You with me?
Yeah. With something. Something.
There was once a big tzaddik named Reb Zusha. And one day he was walking along the road when he noticed a Gentile farmer trying to load some hay onto his wagon. So the Gentile farmer asked Reb Zusha, "Excuse me, Rabbi, can you please help me lift the hay?" And Reb Zusha said, "I can't. Sorry, I can't." And the farmer said to him, "No, sir. It's not that you can't. You just don't want to." When Reb Zusha heard these words, he understood that a message was being sent to him from the heavens through this farmer. And he started to cry. And he said, "God is teaching me a lesson through this farmer. I'm being told that I have to lift the hay of God's name. It's not that I'm not able to do it. There must be a part of me that doesn't want to do it." Ladies, each one of us sitting here has to do it, and you can do it, and I'm going to give you the formula. The question is how. Chachamim explained that you are able to do this all year long, but especially during these 21 days between Shiva Asar B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av. Ladies, these 21 days are very powerful and they're very potent. They are filled with the strength that you need to raise the Shekhinah from the depths of Galut. These are the days where you could restore the Shekhinah to her full glory and have the merit to be builders of Yerushalayim. How's that? Who wants to be the builder of Yerushalayim? Only you three? I'm appalled at this. I'm appalled. Raise your hand if you want to. You know how I know this? The 3 letters of Hashem's name that are missing, that last hey, we said was this, right? Yud, Hey, Vav. Look at these 3 letters. Yud is 10. Vav is 6, that's 16. And Hey is 5. 16 and 5 is how much? 21. 21! Which means that we are now in the period of the 21 days of Yud, Hey, Vav. And it is incumbent upon us during these days to restore the final Hey to the first 3 letters. As a side point, just as a by the way, the rabbis revealed to us that the human body also represents the 4 letters of Hashem's name. Watch this. The head is like the Yud, because the Yud is like a dot. The right hand is the first Hey, because the fingers, you have 5 fingers, that represents the letter Hey. Hey is 5. The length of the body, from the neck down to the feet, represents the letter Vav. And the left hand represents the last Hey in Hashem's name. So the human being actually represents God's letters by virtue of his body. So when you look at another person, you are looking at the image of God. Of Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. That's what we call the Tselem Elokim of a person. We were all created in the image of God. So the human body makes up the 4 letters of Hashem's name, and that teaches us that nothing in life is a coincidence. Everything in our religion entails great wisdom and contains a precise calculation. So now we've come to the main event of the shiur. I have to give you the formula of how we're going to realign the letters of Hashem's name during these 21 days. How are we simple people going to do it? The Ben Ish Chai Alav Shalom tells us how. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says, Hevei mitalmidav shel Aharon, be from the students of Aharon Cohen. Ohev Shalom, verodef Shalom, be somebody who loves peace and chases after it. The Ben Ish Chai offers us a very deep explanations of the words Ohev Shalom verodef shalom. He says that if you will be ohev shalom, then Hashem will be rodef shalom. What does that mean? Why would I want to make peace if God is going to chase it away? And the Ben Ish Chai quotes the great Chacham Rabbi Moshe Galanti, alav shalom, who taught us that there is an evil power in the world called the Sitra Achra. Literally, it means the other side, the dark side. When I'm teaching it to the secular students, I call them, just imagine Darth Vader. You know how it's called? The dark force? I think the dark force, that's the dark force, the Sitra Achra. Now ladies, don't be offended with what I'm about to tell you, but Chachamim tell us that there are two primary forces of evil that are referred to in Kabbalistic books. They are known as Nashim. They're referred to as females. And guess what? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai provides us with their names, these two powerful forces. One is called Machalat. The other one is called Lilith. We're only going to mention her name once because it's not a good thing to repeat her name. So we'll call her Lily from now on. Each of these forces has an army. Machalat has an army of 478 soldiers, which is equivalent to the numerical value of her name. Lily has an army of 480 soldiers, which is the numerical value of her name. Now these two forces, they don't really get along with each other. And that's good for us. Because as long as those two are fighting, we could escape their fury. But if these two forces would unite, we'd be in big trouble. Says the Ben Ish Chai, during the times of the Bet HaMikdash, these two forces began to unite. And the entire world, these two forces started to unite, and the entire world was beginning to be filled with the kochot hatumah of these two. That's why the great rabbis were fasting and praying, because they knew that Klal Yisrael was now in a very precarious situation because these two evil powers were now joining. Unfortunately, the prayers of the righteous weren't answered, because once these two came together, there was kind of like a spiritual iron dome that did not allow the prayers to reach the highest place in the heavens. That's how the Bet HaMikdash was able to be destroyed. Now, what do these two forces do? What's their functionality? Machalat comes from the word mechol, which means a circle of dancing. Machalat and her army have the power to cause a person to run after all kinds of ta'avot and inappropriate festivities and superficialities of the world, celebrations that are inappropriate. And Lily comes from the Lashon Yelala, which means to cry. And that's the power that brings to us, to this world, a lot of sadness, a lot of trouble, a lot of despair. How do we negate these two powerful forces? Chachamim say, with Machalat, in order to negate her, Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha. Serve God with joy. When you do the mitzvot, do them with joy. That has the power to negate her. Why? Because our happiness has the power to negate that force that makes us want to run after the frivolousness, the fake pleasures, and the false happiness of this world. And with Lily, when we cry for the right things in life, not for the silly things, and we cry for the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash and for the way the tragedies are in this world, and we fast because of the destruction and our body feels the suffering, that has the power to negate the forces of Lily, who tries to bring upon us doom and despair and sadness and crying. But here's the thing, ladies. Since the times of the Bet HaMikdash, when it was destroyed, when these two forces came together, and until today, These powers are still united. And Mashiach, unfortunately, cannot come until we separate these two forces. Only then will our tefillot reach the highest realms of Shamayim without any interferences or obstructions. But as long as these two forces are united, Am Yisrael continues to experience, unfortunately, a lot of sadness, a lot of pain, where we run after falsehood, false pleasures and ideologies. So how do we separate these two forces and then bring Hashem's name back into place? The Ben Ish Chai writes, when there is unity among our people, when there is togetherness, that causes disunity between these two forces. And that's what the Mishnah meant when it says, Ohev Shalom verodef Shalom. If you're going to be Ohev Shalom, if you're going to be a seeker of peace, and you're going to want to unite yourself with your fellow neighbor in order to live with him in harmony, then God will be Rodef Shalom. God will chase away the peace between these two evil forces. And when these two forces separate, what's going to happen? They'll start fighting each other again and leave us alone. So our mission during these 21 days is to simply be Ohavei Shalom, to be lovers of peace, so that God could be Rodef Shalom. You know what our avodah is during these days? These days now have to be days of tolerance, of acceptance, and love. We have to try and create as much love and peace and togetherness as possible. That's the key. Why? Because as long as we continue to be a nation that is divided, then not only are these two forces wreaking havoc, but God's name is also lacking unity. And that's what we've been talking about this entire time. But if there would be shalom between the Jewish people, God would bring back the shalom to the entire world. If we could learn to unite, that would help complete God's name and eradicate all the sadness and despair in this world. Not only that, but the divine presence would live among us again, and it would bring down tremendous blessings to this world. So these days, ladies, these 21 days, it's not a joke. These are the days where our mission is to unite the Yud, the He, and the Vav with the final He. And we could accomplish that just by creating peace and unity among us. That's something we could all do. Making peace with people is not an esoteric concept. You don't need the kavanot of the Ari Kadosh or Kabbalistic meditations in order to be at peace with your neighbor, in order to be at peace with your husband, in order to be at peace with your children. Each one of us has an obligation to put the broken pieces of a friendship back together and to create peace. And each one of us has an obligation, while we're doing that, to put the holy letters back together again. So these are the days of accountability, responsibility, and hope. We have to create shalom in our homes, shalom in our communities, shalom in our friendships, shalom between us and God, and shalom between us and ourselves. We have to learn to be lovers of peace, and we have to chase after it as if the redemption depends on it. Because, ladies, our Chachamim teach us that the Jewish people is considered a tzibur kadosh. They are a holy congregation. But we have to learn to accept each other. And we have to understand that we're all on different levels. Each of us was born with a particular tafkid, with a particular purpose, and with different challenges. We have to learn to love our fellow Jews, and we have to behave like a true tzibur. Tzibur. Because you know what the word tzibur stands for? Tzadikim, Benonim, Vereshaim. Our holy nation is made up of all kinds of souls. And each one of us, on our level, from the biggest tzaddik. So right now, the evildoer has his personal functionality in the world. Chachamim tell us that we need all these three groups in order to form a congregation, believe it or not. Even the Rasha has a purpose. But the one with the most responsibility is the tzaddik, the righteous one. A righteous person knows better. He has to have the patience, the tolerance, and the love to be able to deal with the two groups beneath him. And when that righteous person goes with them, beneath them,
I think even tzaddiks have a bit of...
we all do. Because the minute we ate from the Etz Hadat Tov Vara, inside of us there's a mixture of good and evil. And
there's a mixture of all that in each of us.
Correct. But part of our purpose and mission in life is to rise to the occasion and subdue that part of us and become what? Become righteous. So, but if the tzaddik would go out of his way to be tolerant and to love others that are not like him and not judge or malign, when the righteous person demonstrates compassion and the willingness to live at peace with other people, that can turn these two groups, the Benonim and the Reshaim, eventually into tzaddikim. And guess what? Chachamim say, you think it only goes one way? It goes the other way too. The Benonim, Benonim means the ones that are in between. They're not exactly righteous, the most righteous, but they're not evildoers. They're somewhere in between. They're not here, they're not there. They're like this, they're teeter-tottering. Rasha is constantly doing sins, and you have to be doing a lot of sins to get to the level of Rasha. Like sometimes I see a person calling another Jew, "Where's the Rasha?" Why are you calling him a Rasha? He doesn't keep Shabbat. Rasha because he doesn't keep Shabbat? No, you gotta be doing a lot of immoral acts, like a multitude of acts before you call somebody a Rasha, and you should never call anybody a Rasha because you know the word Rasha. Reish Shin Ayin, Reish Shin Ayin stands for something. It stands for Ribono Shel Olam, which means master of the universe. That means even when a person is not exactly doing what God wills of him, and he's kind of like an evildoer, but the master of the universe is embedded within him, and he has a piece of Hashem inside of him, and he could rise to the occasion at any time. So we should never call a person a Rasha. It's not for us to decide. But the point is that it goes the other way too. It doesn't only work one way. When the Benonim and the Reshaim also have to learn and to tolerate, to accept the righteous people, because a community without a tzibur, without a tzaddik, if you take away the tzaddik, you're left with the word bur. You know what a bur is? A fool. Which means a community needs the righteous person too. The Benonim and the Reshaim have to understand that there are blessings that are flowing down into their lives because that righteous person is doing what's right and just in the eyes of God. He's keeping the mitzvot. Some people have a tendency to look at the religious person who's a little stringent in certain aspects of Judaism in a very negative way. We look at, this person is fanatic. There are many of us who don't even include these people in our circles because the fear they're going to ruin the fun. Ladies, if I'm more observant than you, does that mean that your God and my God is not the same God? Am I any less related to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov than you are? Yes or no? Our family tree could be traced back to the same righteous people. We just have to learn to live like the family that we are and not like enemies. So ladies, Yehi Ratzon, that we should have the strength and the inspiration during these 21 days. First and foremost, that's the recipe to create peace among us. And by doing so, to reconnect the letters of God's name to their rightful place. And by doing so, we're going to become the promoters of peace in the world. And Be'ezrat Hashem, that's going to lead to the ultimate perfection of the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey. And these 21 days that were once earmarked for tragedy will one day turn into the happiest days for all of Am Yisrael. Amen ken, Yehi Ratzon.